Hello and welcome to everybody to joining us tonight. Thank you for being part of this Qandor webinar series, where our members offer the expertise and knowledge on a wide range of property-related subjects. I'm Mike Frisby and a prolific HMO investor from Banking Developments, and I'm your host for this evening. And today's webinar will be focusing on developing HMOs and delving into how best to utilize space and generate greater returns. For those of you that don't know about HMOs and aren't too sure, an HMO is a house in multiple occupation, which is a property occupied by more than one household and more than two people. This may include bedsits, shared houses and self-contained flats, and we go into the detail today around them as it gets a little bit confusing because different parts of the councils define them slightly differently. So we're going to break those myths tonight. I'm pleased to announce our guest speakers and developers is developer and investor Jeremy Ashworth from Qandor Properties, who will be showcasing his 19-bed HMO in Telford, Shropshire, and Giovanni Patania from Windsor Patania Architects, who will be talking us through strategies to optimize space and the possible pitfalls to look out for. So Giovanni, I'm going to hand over straight to you. So welcome, Giovanni, to the presentation.
Thank you very much, Mike. It's a pleasure meeting you all virtually. I'm going to share my screen and start my presentation. So this should be ready in a second. Yeah, Mike, are you able to see my screen okay? Yes. All right, fantastic. So is my job today to do an introduction on HMOs. So what are HMO developments? And which are the different types of HMO developments, and which are the main steps we all have to follow to have an HMO property up and running and ready to be tenanted. Okay, before we start, let me introduce you who we are. So HMO Architects is a sister brand of Windsor Patania Architects, a company that started in 2017 by me and Ryan Windsor. I cover the architectural side, Ryan covers the investment side, and we successfully combine architecture with investment experience. So I have 12 years of architectural experience and design. 3 years, I started investing in property 3 years ago, so I'm also a property investor, and I am financially free thanks to my portfolio of HMOs. Ryan has 10 years of development experience. He has invested since 14 years in property, and he is also financially free thanks to his large portfolio of HMOs and buy-to-lets. But it's not just me and Ryan. We have a large team of architects which specialize also in HMO developments. All right. But let's get back to our main focus. So what is an HMO? Mike already covered it. This is again the HMO definition. An HMO is a house in multiple occupation and a property occupied by more than one household and more than two people. And may include bedsits, shared houses, and self-contained flats. Really important. An HMO has a use class which is classified as C4 use, yeah, up to 6 bedrooms. Beyond 6 bedrooms, we start talking about sui generis HMOs or large sui generis HMOs. Okay, this distinction is really important, as you will see later, because it determines different actions and a different timeline. But what do you really know about HMOs? Yeah, so from an architectural point of view, HMOs are a 10 steps process. So as you can see from the circle, it looks a little bit complicated. So I'm not going to go into detail into what every single step of these ones covers. It is mainly about the architectural point of view of an HMO journey. If you want to know more about it, you can book a call with us via email or on our website. But today we're going to study the main 3 milestones of our development journey from the investor point of view, which are planning, building regulation, and licensing. Okay, so without the approval of one of these milestones, these phases, you can't run your property efficiently as an HMO, okay? Or you can't run your property as an HMO in the first place. So to get your HMO up and running, you need to make happy the planning department, the building control department or the building control company, and the environmental health office, okay? Is really important. Let's have a look now at which are the main HMO categories. There are three main HMO categories. The first one are the 3 to 4 bedroom HMO properties. The second one are the 5 to 6 bedrooms HMO properties. And then we can go beyond 7 bedroom HMOs. And in beyond 7 beds, but we are really talking about large sui generis HMOs. Let's start with the 3 to 4 bedroom HMOs. They have a maximum of 4 occupants. Do you need planning? Do you need planning? You need, you can do those type of properties under permitted development, which will allow you to change from C3 use to C4 use, okay? Some developers, they don't even apply for planning because they just want to go straight into building regulation, but we always recommend, for peace of mind, to get to do the permitted development application anyway, because in that way you're covering your shoulders, your back, in a sense that if there's an article for enforcement in the area, you still have a proof that the permitted development was approved on the property, and the property can be used as an HMO. So we always recommend to do these applications for peace of mind. Do you need building regulation? No, you don't need to do any building regulation application if you do only cosmetic works on these type of properties, okay? Do you need a license? For 3 to 4 bedroom HMOs, you only need a selective license, and not all the councils will enforce you to have a selective license, okay? So we always recommend you to check with the local authority to make sure whether they ask for it or not, yeah, and then take action accordingly. These type of properties, they usually look like that: mid-terrace houses, end-of-terrace houses with 3 bedrooms at the first floor, 2 reception rooms at the ground floor, and a kitchen, dining, living at the ground floor. Okay, really, really simple properties to start with in terms of HMO journey. Really, really straightforward developments. Let's move on to 5 to 6 bedroom HMO properties. They have a maximum of six occupants. Do you need planning? Yes. Yes and no. Yeah, you can get a 5 to 6 bedroom HMO under permitted development, and it applies the same as the 3 to 4 bedroom HMO. We always recommend you to apply for permitted development just for peace of mind, but it's up to you. Yeah, if you are a risk taker or not. Yeah. Do you need building regulation? Yes, you ideally need to pass fire requirements and ventilation requirements. If you have, for example, en suites without natural ventilation, yeah. So those are some basic requirements which will have to be satisfied during the building regulation process. In most cases, these type of properties need include dormer extensions, ground floor extensions, and they also need obviously building regulation approval. Do you need licensing? Yes, you need mandatory licensing, which is more complex than the selective licensing of the 3 to 4 bedroom HMOs, because you will need to send to the council a number of certificates covering fire, electrics, the building completion certificates, and more, to sort of make sure, so the council will have to make sure your property is fit for purpose. Bear in mind, licensing is something which is done at the end of the process. You can't get a license of an HMO which is not built yet or is under construction. The licensing, you get licensing only after the completion of the property and when the property is fit for purpose, okay? A 6-bedroom HMO looks a little bit like that in terms of the layout. At the ground floor on the left, you see the ground floor with an extension at the back of 3 meters. Then we go at the first floor, and in the dormer, we have a dormer extension. So in terms of rooms distribution, we will have 2 bedrooms at the ground floor, 3 bedrooms at the first floor, 1 bedroom in the loft. And then suites will be positioned to be 1 at the ground floor, 2 at the first floor, and 1 in the loft. We always recommend to keep at least 1 shared bathroom out of all the suites for management purposes. Obviously, you will need also communal area, and the size of the communal area will vary according to the local HMO requirements. When designing these type of properties, you will likely end up with really tiny spaces, rooms from 8.5 square meters up to 10, 12. We never recommend to go below 8.5. Some developers decide to do smaller bedrooms, but we will never recommend it because they are likely to generate more void periods. They are less attractive. So 8.5 is a good amount for a bedroom of an HMO of this type of properties, because you can fit comfortably nice furniture, a large desk, chest of drawers, etc. And as you can see, also the choosing the right elements, furniture elements, in terms of the appearance and the design becomes really important to attract tenants. And the same applies to the bathrooms and to the kitchen. So we talk about 3 to 4 bedroom HMOs, 5 to 6 bedroom HMOs, and we mentioned that you can get them under lawful development certificate or permitted development. There are some exceptions though. Some areas is important that you check that your HMO property is or is not located in an Article 4 area, okay? Because some councils have the power to enforce Article 4 directions, which will remove your permitted development right to convert an HMO, a family house into an HMO. So in that case, you will need a full planning application, okay? Really important to check before even buying the HMO property. Let's move up our number of bedrooms, 7+ bedroom HMOs. They have 7+ number of occupants. You can even have, and they are negotiable. You can have a 7-bedroom HMO with 11 occupants. Do you need planning? Of course, you need a full planning application in this case. We're not talking about anymore family homes or enlarged family properties. They are now a commercial building. Yeah, we start talking about almost like a tiny hotel. Yeah, so they need a totally different process, which is more demanding in terms of timeline, and it implies sometimes committee meetings, as well as a consultation period. So letters will be sent to the local neighborhood to ask for the opinion of the neighbors. So it's a much more complex process, the full planning application process. Do you need building regulation? Of course, you need building regulation, fire, ventilation, and acoustic. Acoustic performances have to be higher than for the other type of HMOs, because we're talking about a higher amount of people living in a smaller space. Yeah, and these people are likely not to know each other really well. So the building control will require better acoustic performances and thicker partition walls. Really important to respect this point here. Do you need licensing? Yes, you need a mandatory license, the same as the 5 to 6 bedroom HMO. Okay, these type of properties will look something like that, and in this case, we have a property with a really large extension on the ground floor under prior approval, 6-meter extension, first floor extension, dormer, and hip to gable extension. Be aware that the more extensions you add and the more rooms you add, in this type of properties, the longer is going to be the planning process. Yeah, because the council will have to digest all your requirements, and you will have probably to negotiate. It's likely that you will have to negotiate with the council the number of occupants and the number of bedrooms. And for this reason, it's really important to have your architect on your side ready to do the amendments when requested by the council. Okay, these properties, they might look something like that. End of terrace houses before, so it is one of our projects, and after. Yeah, so any opportunity for an extension will be taken here. So hip to gable extension of the roof, dormer extension. The interior design, again, is really important. So having these kind of images will help in defining the vibe of your rooms. And then the rear extension, as you can see in here, we have the 6 meters extension on the ground floor, first floor extension, and the dormer conversion. In this case, we've done also a few studies of the materials, and the client decided to go with this version here, which is black and white. Let's move up our number of bedrooms, 10 plus. Again, the number of occupants is negotiable. Do you need planning? Of course, you need planning application. Do you need building regulation? Yes. Fire, ventilation, acoustics, structure. Yeah, you're likely to need to have the need of structural approval as well. Do you need licensing? Of course, you need mandatory licensing. These type of properties are likely to be mixed-use developments. In this case, we have an Italian restaurant at the ground floor, and a tattoo shop at the ground floor, and the HMO is part of the extension at the back, at the first floor. Every room has an ensuite here, so we are basically talking about almost a hotel situation. Yeah, this is the property before, and this is after the intervention, with the rear extension at the back. You can even increase the number of bedrooms above 15 and beyond. This is another conversion of an office building into HMO, 15 plus. Again, a lot of attention has been dedicated to the inside, to the interiors. You have to make your HMO stand out from the crowd. Yeah, so having doing an extra mile on the interior is going to help a lot, getting the right tenants. And then we can go beyond 20 bedrooms. Yeah, in this case, this is a conversion of a police station into a 24-bedroom property with all ensuite. So we are now at the end of our presentation. I hope it was interesting. We covered the three main HMO categories: 3 to 4 bedroom HMOs, 5 to 6 bedroom HMOs, 7+ bedroom HMOs, and we covered the 3 main steps of an HMO development journey, which are the planning process, the building regulation process, and licensing. A lot of new starters in the HMO sector, they confuse planning with building regulation. If you pass planning, you don't automatically pass building regulation. You have to pass first planning and then building regulation, because they are completely separated. And then we covered Article 4 restrictions. So always be careful to Article 4 directions, because they might be a deal breaker for your HMO journey. So be careful with that. And we covered a few case studies. Some more tips for you before I leave the word to Jeremy. In HMOs, the relationship with the council is really important. You can manage your relationship with the council in the planning stage, building control, and licensing. If you hire an architect like our company, we will act as your agent, so you don't have to do all the heavy lifting of sort of speaking with the council, getting their comments. We will take care of it, so we will be your agent all across the process, and we will sort of build a relationship with the council, make sure they are happy, do the amendments needed. And this is really important for the success of your HMO development. When the project goes on site, is important that you stay connected with your building team, and this can be done by, again, the architect or the project manager. Okay. Thank you very much for the attention. If you need extra guidance with one of your projects, you can visit our website and submit your project so we can book a meeting together, or you can send us over an email. Thank you very much. I'm going to leave the word to Jeremy.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying the free content. My name is Siddell. I started Qandor in 2017. In 2020, we launched a property academy called Tropolis. If you want to know how you can come and join our fantastic network and work with the wonderful people that we help and support, then click the link below and book your call with me today.
That was a great presentation, and we do have a few questions. So we have a little bit of time to run through some questions.
Okay.
If that's okay with you. The first one that I can see is, how long does it take to go through the planning process?
Fantastic, a great question. For a lawful development certificate or a permitted development application process, it will take, usually we assume it's going to take a week, 1 week to 2 weeks for acknowledgement, because the council will have to receive our documentation and make sure they have the right documentation in place before validate the application. Only when they validate the application, the planning process starts. Yeah. So for a permitted development application, it will take 1 to 2 weeks for validation and 6 weeks to get the decision notice. While for a full planning application, will take again 1 to 2 weeks for validation and 8 weeks for the decision notice. But the larger is the property, and the more extensions you are going to add, the longer the process is going to be, because the council will be likely to ask an extension of time. And when the council asks for an extension of time, the only thing you have to say is yes, because if you say no, it's going to take even longer.
Thank you. That's brilliant. There are some more questions coming through. We've got limited time before we have to move over to Jeremy.
Yep.
But another one that's coming through, and I'll put my take on it, and then I'll hand it over to you, which is, what are typical mistakes beginners make, and how can one reduce these? So how can we reduce these is working with experts like Giovanni, because he's obviously got an architect practice that knows and understands HMOs. And I don't think all practices knows and understands HMOs. So make sure that your power team is actually, knows about HMOs, because some architects concentrate on other things. So make sure you get one that you know. And the other thing that I just wanted to touch on is, when we're talking about numbers and bedrooms and things, it's all about the number of people who occupy the HMO, not necessarily the number of bedrooms, because we've got people who share. So you might set up a 6-bedroom HMO, and then you decide to put a couple in, but then you could have breached your license and you could have breached your planning. So just make sure you understand all the different aspects, because as Giovanni was saying, each part of the council has their own view on what's going on, which complicates the whole matter. So Giovanni, did you want to answer that too? Because I'm sure.
Yeah. So this is a day-to-day issue. How do we appraise an HMO? To be the way we want it to be. Yeah. So the best way to do it is to spend some time on having of designing the space inside, even with the estate agent plans. Yeah. So in our practice, we have a service which is called Hmo Design Appraisal. It takes 1 week to produce. It's quite cheap, and is a fantastic way to appraise your property under a planning point of view, building regulation point of view, and architectural point of view. Yeah. In terms of, so if you're interested, if you have a property, you can send the details over to us, and we can have a look. The most common mistakes are that people don't do this type of due diligence before buying the property, and they think they can get 8 bedrooms, but they can't, because there's an issue, for example, with the outlook of the windows, or with the fire strategy. Yeah, so there are lots of requirements which have to be considered that will make a certain number of bedrooms unviable. Yeah, and that's why, as Mike said, it's important to speak with an architect which is specialized in this type of properties, with a planning consultant, to make sure you can get your HMO, the HMO you have in mind, and don't wait until after you buy the HMO to do this type of due diligence, because then it will be too late.
And I think also, don't assume anything, because I think sometimes people assume and then get it wrong, and it's much easier, as Giovanni was saying, to do things up front rather than undo them later on. And don't assume that your builder knows all the regulations, because they might be used to working on residential type properties rather than HMOs. So it's also useful, as I said, you know, the whole power team, as Giovanni was saying, planning consultants, think about builders who are used to actually converting HMOs as well, so that you know that you're in professional hands. I think we've got time for one more quick question before I hand over to Jeremy. And what is the best way, in your view, Giovanni, that you add value and profitability to an HMO?
Okay, it depends a lot from the areas. Yeah, one typical way, a really common type of development for example, for 6-bedroom HMOs, is to get a 3-bedroom mid-terrace house or end of terrace and convert it into a 6-bedroom property. Yeah, this type of development is really popular in Liverpool, but is becoming popular also in London, Cambridge. We're doing a lot of these type of properties in Cambridge at the moment. So you buying a property with 3 bedrooms on the first floor, then you do an extension at the rear, so you create a communal space at the ground floor, which works really well, and then you extend the loft. So loft conversion, dormer conversion, and nowadays en suites are becoming more and more popular. So adding en suites to your HMO is going to cost you a little bit more upfront, but it's going to make your product much more competitive on the market. Yeah,
brilliant.
And lately,
thank you for that. I think we need to crack on.
Fantastic. Right.
So I want to now hand over to Jeremy. There's lots of questions still coming through. So after Jeremy's, we might go back and answer some of those, because I know Jeremy's going to be in a good position to answer some of those too. So Jeremy, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks, Mike. Hello, everybody. Let me just get the slideshow on. Is that all good? Great stuff. So great to be here. Thanks for listening in. Let's get straight on with it. So yes, at the end of 2019, we're based in West London. We have quite a lot of HMOs in Reading and Luton. We were kind of pretty happy with what we got. We're concentrating on new build at the time, still are. But one of our contacts through Qandor just presented us with this opportunity in Telford, Shropshire, miles away from where we were based. And that, by the way, is just one of the many great things about being part of Qandor. I will give them a quick plug. We wouldn't have known about this unless we'd had that contact. So he sent us some photos, which you're seeing now. Wellington's quite a small town in the Telford area. He very kindly put some numbers together for us. We started taking a look at it. Actually, the more we looked at it, the more we thought, come on, why not? This could be really good. And I'm talking about my wife and I, by the way. So we got more and more interested in it, took a look at it. Whenever we see something like that, we think there's probably an opportunity there, even though it looks absolutely terrible. So it was designated use as office, but obviously hadn't been used as anything. In reality, garden completely overgrown. What I'm going to show you is actually what we achieved and how it looked at the end. So you've got a picture of it when I start talking about the journey. So good photographs help, by the way, but we did spruce up the outside. And at the back there, we completely transformed the garden, put a bit of greenery in, patio space. And of course, what you're really wanting to do is to transform the internal space. So that is what we did. There are reasons why we've created it like that, which I will come on to later. A lot of it is about really, really understanding your market, which in this case is purely young professionals. Just one other thing to say is it felt like quite a big risk for us to do something so far away. That had never been our kind of internal rule, if you like. But we liked the deal and we were up for it. And we recommended a builder who we were working with for the first time. There's always a risk with that. I went out of my way to sort of do as much as I could to build a really good relationship with the builder. Thankfully, it did work out really well, even during COVID. It actually couldn't have gone better from a builder point of view. So just what do I want to say? I mean, it's only the last 2 or 3 years that I've sort of been full-time in property. For most of my working life, I've been doing something completely different. And for the last 10 years, which is leadership coach, for the last 10 years, then my wife and I, we agreed that we would try and have one property project on the go. So on occasions it was 2. And that was just the way it was. I think, although I'm naturally wanting to do everything now, the silver lining was we were limited. And I just think really, when I look back on it, there's a lot to say for extending that learning period. When we did our first HMO, we learned tons about that. We were able to funnel that learning into the second one, do that, and then the third. There's just something here I know directly or hear stories about investors, developers who want to go all in and do everything at great speed. That is a risk if you don't have the learning, and you can crash and burn easily. And it's not easy once you know what you're doing. And as we've done, built up a specialism, it does feel easier. But we've got to a stage now where we've got over 100 HMO ensuite rooms in Reading, Luton, and Shropshire, and flats across West London as well. And really, because of that kind of incremental learning, it's enabled us to really add tons of value along the way to each property. It's enabled us to refinance very well, and we've been able to increase and maintain our kind of cash float, as it were. So onto that, what are we trying to achieve with an HMO all the way along the line for us, and definitely with Wellington? I think this is what people are often looking for, not always, but this is what we are. Find ways to add maximum value. We'll talk about that in a minute, such that when you get to the end of the build, call in the lender and you're refinancing, usually at 75%. You're trying to get as large a valuation as you can, so that the amount that you're borrowing at 75% is equal to the amount that you put into the property, both in terms of purchasing and developing. And that way, what you can do, in theory at least, is you pull all your money back out of the property. You can recycle that onto other projects, and you have a property which you own. You've got immediate equity in that property, and you're earning rental income every year for however long you want to earn it, which is 20 years or beyond. So we'll bring that all to life soon. So how do you maximize that value add? That's the key question. So first of all, find the right location. The HMO market is becoming pretty sophisticated in parts of the UK. We would probably prefer to avoid those hot locations where it's very competitive. For that reason, Wellington was perfect. It's fairly unsophisticated on HMOs. When we did our research, we discovered that a lot of investment has gone into the Telford area recently, a lot more employers. So demand was potentially outstripping supply. And that's been borne out by the ease with which we've filled the rooms with tenants. Buying well, yes, it's important. We did this through the network. I honestly think that the days of being able to find good deals on Rightmove, etc., are over. They are for us, at least. For me, it's all about picking up the phone. One call leads to another. Build your network and build relationships. Those next 3 things we will talk about in more detail. One thing to say about planning gain. I mean, planning gain was the biggest thing for us on this Wellington project. We nearly always get, as part of the planning gain, look to see, as Giovanni says, look to add extra space at the back, in the loft. Actually, on this particular project, we didn't need to do anything. It's pure conversion because we knew that the numbers would stack up without having to build anything more. Space allocation and then creating superior products. So we'll look at those. So let's just talk about planning. Giovanni's talked about, no, he hasn't, sorry, beg your pardon. He talked about other aspects of permitted development. So because we had office use, many of you may know this, if you have designated office use B1A under permitted development, it's a slam dunk pretty much. You will know that you can get residential, which is C3. That's like a normal house. You have to submit under prior approval, but that's fairly easy to get. For us, it was about whether we would be able to get planning permission for 2 sui generis. Remember what Giovanni said, large HMOs, 1 for a 10-bed and 1 for a 9-bed amongst those 3 houses that you saw. 2 of those houses we merged into 1, by the way. So there was a decision to make here, and anybody who saw Evan's webinar 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I'm saying exactly the same thing as he did. It's a good idea sometimes not to go for everything all in one go, temptation to be greedy, and the possibility of ending up with nothing. We thought if we went with all 19, we'd frighten the life out of the planning office and frighten the life out of the local residents who otherwise might put in a lot of objections formally. So we decided to put a really good case together for a 10-bed HMO, did get it, banked it, and then with the confidence of that, we went a second time to get a 9-bed. It was just a longer period, obviously, but we were able to get our builders in after we'd established the 10-bed because they were able to crack on with that. So we didn't really waste much time. One other thing I would really recommend is if you are submitting planning application for extra space or a large HMO, your neighbours are going to know about it because they will get something formally through the post and on lampposts. It's a really good idea before they get that. Spend 3 hours, one morning or afternoon, knocking on all the doors or an evening. And this is what we did. I just went around, knocked on doors, showed them photographs of other HMOs that we'd done in Luton to show them the quality, to tell them that it's only young professional people that we're working with. And these are quiet people who just want to get on with their life. They'll be great neighbours. It makes a huge difference. People really appreciate that you're making the effort. We did not have one objection to what we were trying to do. And that really helps. It's just one thing that really helps the planning team decide in our favour. Right, so I want to just point out a couple of examples of how you can utilise space. So Giovanni might have a little smirk on his face while I'm saying this. I didn't know people like Giovanni existed actually until recently. I think it's wonderful that he is an HMO specialist. We've worked with architects who aren't, and we just try and manage them to try and do their best. Where I've got my cursor here, I hope you can see that the top half of this diagram, we ended up with 5, but the architect came back with 4 originally. And we just weren't happy with that. We must have toed and froed with the architect about 6 times. He's getting really annoyed with us by the end because we just wanted to keep pushing on him to use his imagination and creativity to get the space allocation right, put the en-suites in exactly the right place, which would make sense for the room, and to get us more rooms there. Because one of the things that we did at the very beginning is we listened extensively to 5 letting agents in the local area with dangling the carrot that one of them would get our business at the end. And we mined them for information about the local area and what that local market would want. And we established fairly quickly that we would be able to have a market with smaller rooms rather than larger rooms. Actually, when I say smaller rooms, people are really used to a lot of space up in Shropshire. So 12 meters squared is actually quite small compared to our competition. But we knew if we did it up really nicely, we would have a market. And of course, if you can eke out more rooms, it's more rent per square foot. That's got to be a good thing. So the second point I want to talk about with space utilization is, if you look at where I've got my cursor now, the bottom right there where it says entrance hall. It was a really wide space. I'm going to show you what it looked like when we took photographs. That's a big space. To us, that is just waste. But the structure, the layout didn't allow us to get another room out of that. So we thought, how can we utilize that? So what we decided was, because we know our tenants well, we know what they like, storage is massive. So we decided just to invest a little bit of money And actually, we did this after we took the professional photographs. So I got my letting agent to take this today. That's what we got our builders to install. Extra storage space. Tenants love that. They can put their possessions there. It helps give us the confidence to just keep raising that premium price we think we can charge as the part of the overall package. And it's interesting, if we were making that decision now, in the middle of COVID, with permanent working habits likely to change, likely to become permanent, where our tenants might be working 2 or 3 days a week at home, we'd be sorely tempted to put in a bank of desks there, all, with lots of workstations, really cozy that place up and provide a separate workspace for them. And indeed, it is a decision we could still make. We could rip out those lockers and do exactly that if we felt our emerging tenants that was an emerging need for our tenants. So let's talk about the rooms. Now, I'll just mention a few things about this. Giovanni's already hinted at it. For us, it's an absolute essential, it's non-negotiable. We will have whatever it takes to eke out that 2.5 square meter space for ensuite with every single bedroom. I think you might have said something slightly different, Giovanni, actually, but we insist on an ensuite with each bedroom because tenants are much more fussy about that. They don't want to share as much. And we know from experience, from what we hear from elsewhere, that if you have tenants share a bathroom, even just with somebody else, you have to charge a lot lower rent. And it's just a good business decision to put an ensuite with each room. We try and give each room personality. So different color schemes, you can see that there. Feature walls, maybe that will be a different color or a darker color. Pictures on the wall, just vibrant colors, really. Desks and chairs in each room. Actually, I think now, again, if we were making a decision now about the furniture, we'd make those desks larger because of people working at home and sacrifice a bit of space in the room. But just little things, attention to detail, not the electric guitar, by the way, that was just for dressing, but fluffy carpets to give that kind of luxurious feel. It doesn't cost that much more to put those kind of carpets down. Storage under the beds there. You can probably just see that. These are some more photographs. You see in the bottom left where I've got my cursor, sometimes we put extra storage above the bed. Tenants love it because it means that they don't have to have their kind of what looks like litter just all around the floor, which can happen sometimes. So we think it's really important to understand our market. So occasionally with our existing HMOs, we'll just organise a curry night. I'll go over there. They love having a landlord that finally listens to them. I'll buy them all a curry and I'll just ask them, what do you like? What don't you like about this property? And I'll say, if we'd start again, what would we do differently? And one of the early things that came out was they love connections. So what that means is if we are providing a larger than normal space for the kitchen, living and dining areas. So in one of these houses, number 30, the 10 bed, 30 square meters. Now, other developers might make that space smaller and somehow eke out another bedroom. We don't do that because we know that if you've got a larger communal space, they'll spend more time together, they'll eat together. Many of our houses have become such good friends. They actually cook for each other as well. Create a stronger bond between your tenants. They stay in your house longer. That means fewer void periods. And what it also means is it helps you charge that premium price, which is what we're trying to do. We've talked about flair, real attention to detail. Giovanni mentioned that as well. It's really worth doing. My wife is brilliant at that. If I did not have a wife who was brilliant at that, I'd find somebody who was. And you've only got one shot at taking great photos. So we had a professional photographer come in for the photos, take a video. Matterport I'm going to show you, which is like a virtual 3D bit of technology. You've only got one shot at it, and that will take place after you finish the build. You've got an opportunity to dress the rooms exactly how you want, take the photos, and then your first tenants come in, and your rooms will never look as beautiful again. So Matterport, I'm going to show you how this works. It costs about £600 or £700, which might sound a lot, but it's a small drop in the ocean compared to the overall costs. and it just creates that impression of flair. It makes the tenant think that the owner, the developer, cares. So they press a link, which will be on Rightmove, Spare Room, wherever your room's being advertised. You press on this, what you get is a doll's house. Let's say they want to see what the communal space looks like. Is this all right, everybody? This is working, is it? Mike, everyone can see this? Yeah. So you click here. Oh no, hang on a sec. That didn't work, did it? Just give me a moment. We'll go back to that space again. Right, here we go. So you can go backwards, you can do 360, you can go anywhere you like in the house. But let's say at any point, we've got one room that's becoming vacant soon. We're advertising that room. Say it's bedroom 3. We'll advertise it as bedroom 3. They can go to that index in the top left, and they click on that, and they can see immediately what their room looks like. There we go. That's the color scheme. They can see there's a bathroom in there. They can actually even walk into the bathroom. They can see the desk and TV, etc. We'll leave a link on if you want to have more of a look at that. But for now, let's get straight back to the presentation. So that's Matterport. And now what we'll do is we'll take a look at the numbers. So obviously this is what it's all about. One of the great attractions, I'm sure you'll know, of HMOs is the yields are higher. It's a great way of generating more income, if you like, per square foot, because you can get more in the house. So those were our costs. It came to 750,000 altogether. There will be a recording of this made, so if you want at more of your leisure to look at these and just have a bit more time, you'll be able to do that. The GDV, the end value price, obviously we weren't selling, but we got a valuer in from the lender. I spent a lot more time than usual actually really preparing well for that meeting. It just worked really well. I struck up an immediate rapport with him. I gave him lots of information about the property, which just saved him a lot of time when he had to write his report. And without being too pushy, I was able to gently influence him to agree with a valuation, more or less where I had it. I do think in non-COVID times we'd have got that up to $1 million, but we were really delighted with that. We'd heard so many stories of down valuations. That could have been anything. And so what that would mean if we had sold, which we didn't, but it's useful to look at it if we had sold, we made a paper profit of 200,000 over a time frame of 7 months. What really counts is this slide. Now, interestingly, before we talk about those numbers, we appointed the letting agent probably 4 months before we finished the build. They got to really understand what we were trying to create. It was very different from the competition, and it enabled them to start talking early to the local NHS hospital. We got all those rooms lit day one after we'd finished the build. No voids. It was absolutely fantastic. Those figures I've highlighted in bold, which are underlined, that's what we look at as our key measure. So we didn't quite get there. We did leave, as it were, 40,000 cash in the property. We were still really, really happy with that. By the end of the first year, we'll have earned 44,000. That includes letting agents' fees, the mortgage. And so, we'll be, essentially we're already, we can already recycle most of that money and all of it very soon. An annual return divided by the cash left in of 110% is more than, it's just fantastic, especially as with COVID, we just didn't know what was going to happen. And of course, we've got equity of 200,000. We're nearly there. So it's just useful. I think this is one of the other reasons I love the HMO model. From a time point of view, it's just so efficient and neat. So we farm it all out to the letting agent. I would honestly encourage that. You doing the letting agent's work from a developer's point of view is low value time. Your time at high value should be spent, in my opinion, on raising finance, looking for the next deal, all the things that I've talked about. But you can see total time spent over 20 years. We definitely won't spend more than 10 hours a year now it's been done. I don't even need to say more. It just makes complete sense what we're earning over that short amount of time, over 20 years. Final slide. There's so many pointers. It's involved. 20 minutes doesn't really do it justice, but hopefully I've given you kind of a good overview of what there is involved in HMOs. Seek to add the maximum value. And the other thing I'd say is know your strengths and weaknesses. Be clear what you don't know, what experience you don't have, what you can't do, and just make sure you surround yourself with people who do know that. And sometimes that, if you're in a new location, that was a weakness for us. We didn't know the location, so we spent ample time with letting agents and the like to understand that market. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully we've got a bit of time for questions.
Yes, thank you, Jeremy. That was really insightful, and I think these mega HMOs can be quite daunting sometimes, and it's great to see how you approached it and how it's turned out and how successful it's been. So congratulations on that project. It's an amazing project.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying the free content. My name is Matt Siddell. I started Qandor in 2017. In 2020, we launched a property academy called Tropolis. If you want to know how you can come and join our fantastic network and work with the wonderful people that we help and support, then click the link below and book your call with me today.
We have loads of questions flooding through. Try and tap into the Q&A if you can, and join the chat. I believe there's a link in the chat to connect through via LinkedIn as well later on to keep the chat going. But there's a common theme coming through around where do we think the HMO market is heading, obviously taking into account the pandemic. And obviously you've managed to continue to let all of your properties out, Jeremy, during the pandemic. So do you want to take this one and give us your thoughts on what's going on in the HMO market?
It's a difficult one. There are lots of points of view about this, by the way. So mine is only one in a sea of them. Wellington's okay. It's partly okay because all of those tenants are medical staff in the hospitals, doctors, nurses. We need a lot of doctors and nurses during the pandemic. I think even after the pandemic, we'll have a lot of our tenants coming from the hospital. But we are, we have had a few now coming in after, some left after the first 3 months. It's been absolutely fine. Reading is slightly different at the moment because I regard Reading as a real hot market. Do I think there's a danger of saturation? It's always a concern. It's been fine, but right now, because people aren't moving around much, organisations aren't rehiring and people aren't moving into Reading, there's a lot of supply and the demand is nowhere near matching it. So at the moment, I've got about 5 voids and we're being as imaginative. I mean, that's not too bad. I know to me, normally that's terrible, but it's not too bad at the moment. We're being as imaginative as we can to entice tenants in, but that is a potential problem at the moment. And if you were asking me, would I invest again in Reading? I wouldn't, because we've got a foothold there already, and I would spread that risk. That's partly why we went to Telford. Where does the HMO market go generally beyond pandemic? Look, I think we had naysayers 10, 15 years ago thinking there were too many HMOs then. It's still going strong. The only thing I'd say is this market develops. 10 years ago, you could do an HMO without where you were sharing en suites. It's become more sophisticated now. Great photos are essential. I think en suites are essential. So you have to constantly think about where you're going to get an edge. But yeah, no, I think it's still a great market.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think it is really important to get views from different people around different locations, because I think different things, my understanding talking to different people, is that different things are happening in different markets. If you're in London, for example, I think they're struggling because people aren't moving into London. But people moving out of London, I think it is affordable accommodation and people are keeping an eye on their budgets. I think if you've en-suited, as Jeremy's saying, that future-proofs you. And it's certainly, I know all my en-suites have gone, if anything's come available, they've let so quickly for obvious reasons. So you need to just keep your, and I agree with Jeremy, markets move. So just keep your HMOs current, get yours at best in class, whatever differentiation strategy that you have. So there's many things that you can do. I think it's still a lucrative market. You just need to be competitive, just like any other business, I think. Just like any other business, you often need to take market share and not just rest on the laurels of having a growing market. There's many, many more questions coming through here. Some quite complex, some more easier. A quick one here is the question is, are you providing TVs in all the rooms, Jeremy?
We are. They're used as well. Yeah, it sort of borders on looking like a hotel room, I think, sometimes. But yeah, we do to put TVs in the room, and we think that's a good idea.
There's also a question, I don't know, this could be either to you or Giovanni, which is, I've had a couple around, do you need a certificate of lawfulness for an HMO, as lenders have been asking for them? Giovanni, do you want to, that's around planning, so maybe you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so obviously depends if you're doing only the change of use or you're doing extensions of any kind. As mentioned before, the certificate of lawfulness, which is the permitted development application, is always recommended. Also for this reason, because the lender wants to have peace of mind that what you're doing is lawful. Yeah. So the lawful development certificate, having it in place, is always recommended also for these reasons.
And also, I'd just add in, I think the lenders sometimes ask if you're buying an HMO that's been existing for quite a while and there's no clear planning status on it. So there isn't evidence somewhere that it's actually turned into a sui generis property. It just might have been running like that for quite a while. And then you might need to prove it. You might need some proof somewhere that you are running it lawfully and you haven't just converted it yourself. So going to get the right certificates and right planning situation is often required by lenders. And I think that is a good question, because you need to ensure you have all the elements that Giovanni was talking about, the building regulations, the licensing, the planning, all ticked off. Because if you don't have one of those aspects, lenders won't lend to you. They want all of those boxes ticked, so make sure that you do that. So there's another one here saying, would you consider an HMO in the sticks with local pubs, walks, etc., working from home spaces, as we see many will permanently work from home going forwards? What's your view on that, Jeremy?
I love that question. Maybe it's changed. I mean, our modus operandi has been not to do that and stick in town centres if we can. Maybe that's a great way to. Maybe that's, as you know, when we say HMO market can get a bit hot in certain places, well, there's often bits of good news as well sometimes. So that could be an opportunity. So I just don't know. All I would say is that if you found somewhere in the sticks, as it were, just do your extra due diligence. Just talk to more letting agents maybe than you would. I just find that if you listen and then listen again, just listen to lots of people, you'll be able to get to the right decision. But maybe.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting how this all develops and whether little niches like that might appear and boutique HMOs in the countryside might pop up and actually might be very popular. It's a great idea, I think.
Parking is important if you're doing that.
Yes, absolutely. And maybe you need to have a scope to have dogs or something like that because people are going for walks. So that's another one to think about. So I'd really like to thank the speakers for their time tonight. I think there was some brilliant content there, and it was always interesting to listen to other people in the HMO fields. I think the chat is going to continue. Have a look at the chat box. The chat might continue over into LinkedIn if you've still got further questions. There are lots of questions coming through. Today's webinar was recorded and will be available for you to review. And our next webinar to take place will be Wednesday, the 24th, between 2 and 3 p.m. We're going to have 5 top tips to structure deals with them. And we're going to have the host or the founder of Qandor himself, Matthew Siddell, and Will Herman, who's a well-known developer as well on those. Have a look for future registrations of future webinars on Qandor.org/free training. And if you could complete the short survey at the end of this webinar, it'd be really, really helpful to gain your feedback to see what you found useful and how we can improve these in the future. So that would be really, really appreciative. So if you are interested in membership for Qandor, if you would like to learn more, please do get in contact with us. To do that, we have Qandor, which is our club for property developers, investors, and property business owners. It's exclusively people already involved in projects of $1 million plus. So some of the projects that you would have seen today. And then there's also Tropolis. So if your projects are a bit smaller or a bit newer to property, it's a great place to learn and understand and start your journey in property. So please do fill out the survey at the end of the webinar and we will be in touch. So thank you to everybody for tonight. It's been a fantastic webinar and thank you for everyone for taking time to attend and share the evening with us.
So if you enjoyed this video, why not check out some of our other videos? I recently interviewed lots of fantastic people. There's loads of good content in there. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next video.